All right, so this again is the foundational sort of exercise that will tie into what we're going to do this week for your homework assignment. We're going to build a transition that we can take into Premiere and use to bridge shots together or to just do a fancy schmancy wipe between two shots. Two different ways we can use the same transition, but we got to do something so I can show you how that works. So we're going to do something very simple. We're going to create a new composition, and it is going to be called Colored Blocks Transition. And I am going to do the same thing, except I'm going to put a 2 at the end of mine because I already have one. All right, so with that as our starting place, we have nothing going on. So we are going to make a 3 colored blocks. I'll show you actually what this is going to look like. Okay, from the start, this is going to look like this. All right, that probably plays really framey, so I'm going to go slowly through it. We have 3 blocks. They are falling at a staggered rate, which we can control. We have the blocks fall into place, and then the entire screen is filled with blocks. And then the blocks continue to move on, and they stagger off. Now, what's cool is when we export this to After Effects, you'll be able to put this over the end of a clip, and when the blocks have completely filled the screen, you can hide and edit underneath, and then when the blocks fall away, you'll be in your next shot. All right, so that's the sort of main goal often of building something like this. The other thing is, because we're going to export it with an alpha channel, you could also choose to have your blocks fall without any colors and just use the alpha to cut holes in the footage. So in a sense, you will have created a wipe that will come down with new chunks of the next shot and reveal the next shot. So I'm going to show you how that is possible by building only one animation, but being smart about how you build it so that you then can cheat and do cool tricks with it once it goes into Premiere. So that's what we're building. Back to our empty timeline. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to create a block and then of a certain color, and then we're going to copy it a couple times, and then we'll have to finesse it a little bit. If you were paying close attention, you probably saw mine aren't perfect. This red is overlapping. These are all things because I was working fast. But to do it for real, you'll probably want to be more exact than that. But they are 3 separate layers, and they're just shapes. Okay, so we haven't done shapes. We've done a full solid, but I don't think we've done a shape. So we're going to do shapes now. And I am going to go up to the little rectangle tool, which is up here at the top. And I'm going to draw a shape. And I'm going to start with red, because it's really easy to see. And we're going to try to basically split the screen into thirds, right? So I'm going to ballpark this and get it kind of close. And I'm going to draw a red rectangle that covers up most of the screen. Now I want to have a little margin on the top and bottom. It's only a couple pixels. That's enough that I can sort of tell for sure that it is full screen at this point because it's spilling a little outside of the image, which is totally fine. All right. So I did one of those. And when I started using that tool, it automatically made me a shape layer down here. And it's showing me that it's a rectangle, and I have some other controls I don't care about. But I'm going to name it so that I can keep my sanity. I'm going to click on the name, hit return or enter so that it actually lets me type, and I'm going to call it red. So now I know that's my red one. All right, now I'm going to duplicate that layer, which if you remember, you can do Control on a PC, Command on a Mac, D as in dog. And I can hit it twice, and boom, I now have 3 layers of red. I'm going to go to the second layer, and I'm going to return or enter so that I can change it to green. And then the top one, I'm going to also return or enter, and I'm going to change it to blue. So right now, they're labeled the colors they're going to be, but they are not those colors yet. So let's go and grab the green one, and let's get off. We don't need to draw any more shapes, so we're going to go back to the selection tool, which is the arrow in the top corner, arrow tool. You can also hit the letter V. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to drag it over so that it is next to my red box. And then, and still aligned from top to bottom, pretty close to what the one next to it was. But I'm going to click into the fill color, which is up here, and I'm going to change it from red to what I said it was going to be, which is green, and hit OK. Pretty cool. Now I've got that working. And then I know I already made a blue one, but I can't see it yet. So I'm going to click onto my blue layer. I'm going to go grab that box and put it into my last position. Again, getting top and bottom aligned pretty close, and let it go. And then I'm going to click into the color for this, and I'm going to change it to blue so that I can tell them apart. All right. So you should end up with this super fancy flag from a weird country. It's the RGB country. All right. So I now have 3 layers. Yay me. 3 different colors. They are separate. I can move them around separately. I can do what I want. So this ought to be somewhat like what we've already been doing. We're going to do some moving. However, I care right now with the fact that they are all perfectly next to each other, all exactly in what I would consider my full screen of my animation mode. The entire screen has been overtaken with elements that I built. There's no black, no background showing. It's all right. So I'm, out of simple math, going to just go to like a second in, and I'm going to select all my layers. I'm going to hit the letter P for position, and I'm going to set my first keyframe for all the tracks right here at the 1 second mark. So I know that at 1 second, these are all in the home position, if you will, the full screen position. Now, the other thing that I can do at this stage that makes it go fast is I can decide how long do I want them to be full screen before they start falling away. All of these keyframes can be moved later, but for the most part, I'm going to say, let's make round numbers. We can always speed them up later. I'm going to go to 2 seconds in, and I'm going to set another keyframe at all of these positions. Because between these 2 positions, I don't want anything to happen. I want them to sit there and fill the screen. All right. But now I have to create the positions that they fall from and that they ultimately fall to. So I'm going to go to the beginning of my timeline, and I'm going to set a keyframe for all the tracks. And then I'm going to drag the Y axis, and I'm going to move them all up to the point where they are completely out of frame. Now, I did this earlier, and it kind of didn't work right, so I'm going to double check myself. It did. They fly in, they land, they sit there, and then nothing happens. But they're all coming in together, but that's fine, right? Because we can stagger it later to make it look more dramatic. This is just the easiest way to build them fast. So your timeline should be like this. They should be completely out. They should all fall in, sit there for a second, and then we're going to go to the 3 seconds in completely mark. And while I have everything selected, still all my layers selected, I'm going to set a keyframe again, and then I'm going to move the Y position down to where they are all gone and make sure they're good and gone. There is a little bit of a margin down here where I can tell for sure that they've left frame completely. Now, if you scroll through, you will see all 3 fall in together, sit for a second, and then fall away together. Not a very exciting transition, but it would work as it is right now if we wanted to. But of course, staggering is our buddy. Staggering is our way to delay when things happen. So I'm going to pull the middle one over a little bit and then the top one over a little bit to stagger these. Now, if I stagger them too far, if you remember, we created this middle section. So we have 4 keyframes on every track. The starting one, the fact that it fills the frame, how long it stays filled, and then when it starts falling away. For that to work, I can't stagger these so far that there's never a frame where they're all up. That will create a problem for me. So you don't want to move them too far over, just enough to give you the look that you want. You, of course, can move these keyframes independently, but the goal is to have at least a frame or 2 when all the blocks fill the frame before they start falling away. So I actually don't like to stagger that fall, that wide. So I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. And you notice as you change the timing, it changes the distance for each step, essentially the height, of each step. So, keeping that in mind, you can make it look exactly the way you want by just playing with stagger time. And of course, whatever it looks like going off is aligned with coming in, so it'll be the same coming in. So that's pretty cool. I hit play and I get this lovely falling effect. I'm going to set my effect loop time, hit the letter N so that it stops at about 5 seconds. And now I can play it and loop it and make sure that everyone is keeping up by looking at the text. All right. I have maybe a hand up. You can activate your audio and ask your question if you have a question. Zanisha. Zanika. Zanika. I think it's Zanisha, and I say it wrong every time. Beeping sounds from Hannah. Hannah, you have a question. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, for some reason, when it's supposed to be still on the screen, it does a weird bounce thing, and there's nothing different between my two keyframes.
I think this could be the middle keyframe syndrome that we were running into before. If you right click on those center keyframes and go to keyframe velocity, oh, where did we go to do that last time? Keyframe. That's not it. Keyframe interpolation. That's where I think you want to go to. And if it's giving you trouble, you probably want auto Bezier off and change it to linear. And I think it will fix it. Mine's not giving me that trouble, but I think that is where we have fixed that phenomenon before. It's rounding off the keyframes in a weird way, and it gives you something you don't want. So you might try that. You may have to apply it to each track because they're all essentially built the same way. So if one's broken, they're probably all broken. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Good question, though. I'm going to mute you again. All right. So we've built the most rudimentary transition ever. But we are going to do something we haven't done before, and that's export it out with the alpha channel. So we chose our background color to be black, which is why we're seeing black. It's not actually a black solid. It's nothing. If we had chosen white, or it would be white behind all these things. But when we export, if we export with the right codec, we can actually include the transparency information, and it will turn it into the alpha channel. So what does that actually look like? Well, I'm going to show you. We are going to go to File, Export. Oh man, hiccups, awesome. Just what I need. Export, add to render queue. All right, you can see my other previous exports in here, which I'm going to delete just so that it's a little cleaner to look at. And then we have our blue text, and remember, sort of every blue text area is a setting area you need to click on and make a choice within. So if I go to render settings and I check it, it says best settings, that's fine. All of these are defaulting fine, but I mainly, as I've told you before, want you to go in here to just confirm that your work is all it's going to export. So that's good. Mine is still set that way, thank goodness, and I hit OK. Now I'm going to go to the output module. This is where we set our codec. All right. I'm going to put this in the middle so it's a little easier to see maybe. All right. So I want to use a QuickTime format. So assume if it isn't already selected, go into QuickTime. And then we can go to Format Options. Now, animation is a viable one when you have to include alpha channel. It's still going to make a bigger file than it's really worth creating. But just so you know, it will work if you leave it on animation. However, there's still one more thing we have to set. But let's set it to my favorite thing, which everyone's already knowing. I'm going to want you to set it to ProRes. Your exporting area to just the work area is in under render settings. You click and open the blue text next to it, and it will give you the work area only setting inside the render settings that come up. All right, so that was a question I was answering to review. It's right there. So again, we're in the output module. We're picking our format. We are in the QuickTime format choices, but we're going to change the specific codec to be our old buddy ProRes. But we're not going to use the regular ProRes because it only deals with 3 channels of information, 422. We want it to include a 4th channel, which is the alpha channel. So we have to select the 4444 option. That has 4 numbers after ProRes, okay? So pick that, and the reason it has a 4th one is because that will allow you to embed the alpha channel information or the transparent information of what you've built. So once you, and it will still be smaller than you get when you leave it on animation. So that's part of why we want to choose that. So when you hit OK, we have one more thing we have to set, and we've never had to mess with this before, but we want to this time, and that is the channels right here in the middle. So it is set to RGB, which is what we normally do. But if we want to include the alpha, then we need to go into where it says RGB and select RGB plus alpha. That wouldn't even be an option if we weren't in a format or codec that allows for alpha. It'll probably be grayed out or it won't be there at all. So if you try to do this first, you will already kind of see, oh, something's not right. And you should be in ProRes 4444, and then you can do that. Now when we hit OK, we have set it to include alpha when we do our render, which is what we want. And then, of course, the last blue text, since we're working our way through all of these that we have to click on, is where is the file going to go? And out of simplicity, I'm going to put mine on the desktop. You should probably put it someplace better than that when the time comes. You can do this export now if you want to test this in Premiere. I'm going to open it so you don't have to test it and show you how it works. But I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I hit save, yes, put it on my desktop. I'm going to hit render, and boom, it shows me as it renders my little clip, and it falls away, and life is good. Now, you don't have to follow me. You don't have to follow along with me because your computer's probably already overtaxed already. But I am going to open Premiere, hopefully, if my system can handle it. And I am going to bring in couple clips of video and that clip really quick and show you how it works and how it would work if you were generating this and handing it off to an editor. So while we're sitting here, I am going to pause my record because I've not tried that before. And we will pick up when I am ready with Premiere running. All right, after much ado, we finally have Premiere open. I have imported in my blocks falling. If I put it over a shot, just a shot by itself, you see the blocks come in, fall down over the scene, completely covered up, and then fall away to reveal the same shot. And this is why we cared about having a full frame moment, because we want to hide an edit under there. So I've got an edit from her legs to her face. I can actually move my colored blocks over the top of this and hide the cut underneath it. So that is really the goal of the assignment. Animate something, pay attention to what is transparent and what is not, so that you can fill the screen, hide and edit, and have those elements go away. Do something pretty and sexy and fancy with them, please. I did this so that it would go quickly. But you could paint those on, you could flip them up using 3D effects, you could have it be text, there could be words on these blocks. Just do something to make it cooler than this, but this is the general idea. Now, what's also kind of cool is that if I wanted to, I could actually use this as an alpha channel. So if I put the effect on here, and this is going to take me a second to remember how I did this. Keyer, is that what I want? I want to go to the effects. Keyer. I want the ultra key. Nope, maybe not. Hold on. All right, I'm going to stop recording because I'm not confident that this is right. But you saw the main thing, which was, look, it layered and it worked well. All right, so now that I've got my act together, we had it like this. We had a running shot, we had an animation falling into place, hiding the edit underneath, and then the blocks fell away and we were on the new shot. But what if I want to do a wipe and I don't want to see the colors, but I want the wipe between these two shots to be the same basic shape as these falling blocks? Well, it's actually hard to do once you actually remember how to do it. I'm going to move these tracks up, move them over. I'm going to align my animation here with the beginning of this top clip, which what this looks like now is the cut happens before the animation falls, which looks like I'm totally doing the wrong thing. But what I want to do is I want the actual animation to start where these things align, but I want the top layer here, these falling blocks, to just cut a hole that this next shot can fill. So I don't want to see the red, the green, and blue. I want to see the next shot come in there. So the way I do it is I go get a track mat key. So think of the fact that you spent time working on tracks in After Effects, so that'll help you remember. It's the track mat key, and you apply it to the clip, not the animation, which is a little counterintuitive. I'm applying it to the clip I want to reveal inside of this, inside the falling blocks. So once I've selected that and I go into the effects controls, I can see the track mat key and I can go to the mat and say, and right now it's set to none, and I can say, no, I want to base the mat on what's going on the track above the clip that I'm on. So the clip I'm on is on 2, but my blocks are on 3. So I'm going to tell it, base the key that I want it to do on what's going on track 3. And when you do that, you will notice now that you see through and the incoming clip fills the frame. Now, the only problem is it's trying to transition back. So I don't need the whole animation anymore. If this is just a wipe, then as soon as it goes full screen, I can trim off the end of the clip and then I will see the entirety of the clip that's left. So now you're only using it as a wipe. All right. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you build a good alpha that doesn't require the elements to be seen, then it could just be a wipe. And I didn't have to re-export or do anything different. All I did was stack it and apply a different way of blending the elements together. And now within my project, I can keep using that same block concept across my entire piece. And yet maybe earlier in the piece, the blocks came down with the colors and had the company logo on it or whatever. But the point is I did 2 things for the price of 1, which is pretty cool. So it's just about understanding how these alpha channels work by the time they hit Premiere. So I didn't tell you to follow along, but I wanted you to just see it. If you're taking notes or if you use this video as a reference, it shows you obviously I just stacked them, applied the track mat to the element I want to go inside the wipe. So what is it wiping to? I put it on that track and then I told it, now look at the track above it and use that to cut the hole in the video to reveal the next shot. So all you really have to remember is stack it from graphic layer down to footage and then track mat key applied to the incoming shot and then change the mat setting to be the layer you want it to pay attention to. All right. So not real concise, but that is essentially the way that works. Good luck with your assignments. I'm going to stop recording. Have a great week.